let us classify the forces according to contact. Okay, so there are two types of forces on the basis of contact. One type of forces are field forces or non-contact forces. These forces arise due to, field of one particle acting on the other particle. देखो, force which acts on an object at a distance by interaction of the object with the field produced by the other object is called field force. देखो, अगर बेटा there is a positive charge, suppose Q, and there is other particle, suppose Q dash. So this Q applies a repulsive force on this Q dash, but without any actual contact between them. Okay, so what happens is this capital Q charge applies a field on the other charge. That field is called electrostatic field, and due to interaction of electrostatic field with Q dash, there is a force on it. Okay, so there is no actual contact between the particles, and those type of forces are called non-contact forces. So actually these type of forces you must have studied. कौन से हैं? Gravitational force, one of the non-contact forces is gravitational force, and other is electromagnetic force. Gravitational force also, you see that no contact is present between the particles, and then also the forces come into play. यहाँ पे बेटा इन दोनों पे क्या होता है? यहाँ पे repulsion नहीं होता, only attraction is there, and this attraction arises without any actual contact between these two particles. तो इस तरह के जो भी forces होते हैं उनको field forces कहते हैं. इनमें field की वजह से दूसरे पे force लगता है. ओके, तो field के बारे में तो you will study later on, ठीक है, but we have to understand कि without any contact also these forces can act. देखो, जैसे कि एक example लेता हूं मैं. when you throw a ball, ठीक है, and it falls down, why is that? You will say that due to gravitation. So who applies the gravitational force? Earth is applying the gravitational force on the particle. लेकिन क्या अर्थ एक्चुअली हाथ अपना निकाल करके उस बॉल को खींचता है नीचे की ओर? नो, इट डज नॉट डू दैट. ठीक है, ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स इज अप्लाइड थ्रू अ ग्रेविटेशनल फील्ड. क्या होता है यहाँ पे? एक ग्रेविटेशनल फील्ड होता है, एंड व्हेनेवर एनी अदर पार्टिकल कम्स इनसाइड दैट फील्ड, व्हाट हैपेंस इज द ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्सेस स्टार्ट एक्टिंग ऑन इट. ठीक है, तो अगर मैं बॉल को थ्रो करता हूं, सो ग्रेविटी ऑफ अर्थ पुल्स इट डाउन विदाउट एनी रियल कॉन्टैक्ट. दिस इज वन ऑफ द एग्जांपल्स. ठीक है, सिमिलरली देखो, इफ देयर वाज अ रॉड and we bring near it another charge. See, this rod was horizontal and it is charged, okay, and we bring another charge near it. What will happen? It will be attracted without any real contact between the rod and the other charge. How is it happening? With the help of electrostatic fields. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे भी बेटा कॉन्टैक्ट की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती है. तो ये जो दो मेन फोर्सेस हैं, ये क्या कहलाते हैं? फील्ड फोर्सेस कहलाते हैं, राइट. अब दूसरे फोर्स की बात करता हूं, ऑब्वियसली, जिसको कि हम क्या नाम देते हैं? कॉन्टैक्ट फोर्स. कॉन्टैक्ट फोर्स का मतलब क्या है? देयर इज रियल कॉन्टैक्ट बिटवीन टू पार्टिकल्स टू अप्लाई फोर्स. ठीक है बेटा, तो फोर्सेस विच आर ट्रांसमिटेड बिटवीन बॉडीज बाय शॉर्ट रेंज, ठीक है, एटॉमिक एंड मॉलिक्यूलर इंटरैक्शंस आर कॉल्ड कॉन्टैक्ट फोर्सेस. तो थोड़ा सा ये डेफिनेशन आपको अजीब लग रहा होगा, बट लेट मी एक्सप्लेन इट. कि जब भी कोई दो बॉडीज एकदम क्लोज आ जाती हैं, सपोज देयर इज अ वॉल, ठीक है, दिस इज अ वॉल, एंड यू प्रेस अ ब्लॉक टुवर्ड्स इट. आप इस ब्लॉक को इधर की तरफ पुश करते हो थोड़ा सा, तो क्या होता है कि जो वॉल के एटम्स हैं, ठीक है, और जो ब्लॉक के एटम्स हैं, द एटम्स ऑफ द वॉल एंड द ब्लॉक कम वेरी क्लोज टू ईच अदर एंड ड्यू टू दैट, ठीक है, इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक फोर्सेस अराइज बिटवीन these particles, the particles of the wall and the particles of the block, and due to which a repulsion force is created and some forces are exchanged. तो इस तरह के forces जो actual real contact में आने की वजह से आते हैं, they arise due to coming close of the particles of two bodies. उन forces को क्या कहते हैं हम लोग? We call them contact forces. ठीक है, examples are all the names which you have already heard. Normal force, ठीक है, tension force, frictional force. All these forces actually arise when there is real contact between bodies. तभी ये आते हैं. Normal force actually is the force which is applied perpendicular to surface of a body. Tension is the force due to any rope or string. Okay, and frictional force is between bodies moving relative to each other and it acts parallel to the contact surfaces. ठीक है, मैं अगर फ्रिक्शनल फोर्स के लिए समझाऊं आपको बहुत सिंपल टर्म्स में, तो बेटा अगर आप एक सरफेस पर एक ब्लॉक को आगे की तरफ ले जाते हो विथ वेलोसिटी v, तो ड्यू टू इरेगुलरिटीज ऑफ द सरफेस देयर इज अ फ्रिक्शनल फोर्स व्हिच अराइजेस बिटवीन दीज टू बॉडीज. ठीक है, फ्री मोशन इज रिस्ट्रिक्टेड. थोड़ा सा पीछे की तरफ क्या होता है, एक फोर्स लगता है which tries to slow the velocity of the block. That force is called frictional force. So we will talk about it in detail in later slides. Okay. तो कुछ एग्जांपल्स मैं फिर से दिखाता हूं आपको. कॉन्टैक्ट फोर्सेस के लिए क्या है बेटा कि अगर आप एक ब्लॉक पर फोर्स लगाते हो आगे की तरफ, तो वो वाला फोर्स किस में आ जाएगा? नॉर्मल फोर्स में आ जाएगा, बिकॉज यू आर अप्लाइंग इट परपेंडिकुलर टू द सरफेस. ठीक है, सिमिलरली यहाँ पे एक और फोर्स आपको दिख रहा होगा. ग्राउंड इस ब्लॉक पर पीछे की ओर लगा रहा है. द ग्राउंड इज अप्लाइंग अ फोर्स ऑन दिस ब्लॉक एंड ट्राइंग टू स्टॉप द स्लाइडिंग ऑफ द ब्लॉक. इट इज ट्राइंग टू स्टॉप द स्लाइडिंग ऑफ द ब्लॉक ऑन द सरफेस. दिस फोर्स इज कॉल्ड फ्रिक्शनल फोर्स. ये भी एक कॉन्टैक्ट फोर्स है. सिमिलरली इफ टू पर्सन्स आर होल्डिंग दिस रोप एंड दे आर पुलिंग ईच अदर, ठीक है, तो the force applied by the string on the persons, on the people, ठीक है, these two people, that is called tension force. ठीक है, the pulling force applied by a string is called tension force. तो उस पे भी हम थोड़ा डिटेल में बात करते हैं अभी. ठीक है बेटा, but you have to understand this. I'll go back to the previous slide once more कि these forces are also actually electromagnetic in nature only. ठीक है, कि ऑल द फोर्सेस वी हैड टॉक ना कि वो फंडामेंटल फोर्सेस के अंदर ही आएंगे सारे फोर्सेस. ये सब फोर्सेस जो भी आप देख रहे हो बेटा, दीज ऑल्सो कम ड्यू टू फंडामेंटल फोर्सेस ओनली. इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक फोर्सेस की वजह से ही आते हैं. जो एटम्स हैं वो बहुत क्लोज नहीं आ सकते, दे कैन नॉट एंटर इनटू ईच अदर, सो दैट इज व्हाई देयर इज अ रिपल्शन, जिसकी वजह से कोई भी कॉन्टैक्ट फोर्स नेचर में आ पाता है. सो इफ आई टॉक अबाउट नॉर्मल फोर्स और टेंशन फोर्स और फ्रिक्शनल फोर्स, all these forces arise due to electromagnetic force only. ठीक है बेटा, तो we have to study this. We have to understand what is a normal force on a body. देखते हैं. It is the component of contact force, okay, acting perpendicular to the surface. ठीक है, उसे हम क्या बोलते हैं? नॉर्मल फोर्स बोलते हैं. I'll explain. देखो बेटा, if there is a surface, flat surface, and if you put a block, it stays in rest. ठीक है, it stays in rest. तो if I ask you why is it not falling, you know that there is a mg force and a gravitational force which is pulling it down. Why is it not falling down? तो सर आप बोलोगे कि because this surface, ठीक है, this platform is applying some force on the block, right? तो in which direction it is? Let us understand. बेटा देखो, gravitational force always pulls the body towards earth. तो वो तो नीचे की तरफ होगा and the block would like to fall down. So what is the purpose of this platform? it applies a normal force. इस surface के कैसे लग जाता है? ये बिल्कुल perpendicular लगता है. If I draw this block, तो surface will apply a force in the upward direction, ठीक है, due to the contact, and it is always perpendicular to the contact surface. तो ये surface है बेटा, this is the surface which is in contact with the platform. तो उसके बिल्कुल perpendicular जो force लगता है उसे हम कौन सा force बोलते हैं बेटा? Normal force बोलते हैं, right? तो one more statement is there. It measures how strongly the surfaces in contact are pressed against each other. देखो, it is trying to say that it is the measure of force by how much the two surfaces in contact are pressing each other. ठीक है बेटा? Suppose there is a block, ठीक है, और यहां पे एक wall है, and there is a person who is trying to push, ठीक है, this block towards the wall. So this block cannot move forward. Why is that? Because the wall is stopping it from moving further. तो ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है? Because wall is applying a force on this block perpendicular to its surface. तो ये force का नाम हम क्या दे सकते हैं? Because it is acting perpendicular to the surface. That is why it is called normal. Normal का literal meaning we sometimes take as perpendicular. ठीक है? तो let me take one more point. It is the electromagnetic force. This arises due to electromagnetic force between the atoms of first body and the second body. तो उनके बीच का जो repulsion होता है उसको अब कौन से कैटेगरी में डालना पड़ेगा आपको? It is also electromagnetic force in nature. ठीक है? Let me show you a picture. See, here is a book which is kept on a table. तो उस पे क्या हो रहा है बेटा? Its weight, that is the gravitational force of Earth on the book, it is acting downward. So it wants to fall down. But who is stopping it? The contact force by the surface of this table, which will act in the upward direction, is stopping the book from falling. Okay? So since this force is acting perpendicular to the surface of the table, तो इसीलिए this force is called normal force. So this force is always perpendicular to the surface. Suppose there are two inclined surfaces like this, ठीक है, and if you put a ball between these two surfaces, this is an inclined plane or wedge you can say, this is also a wedge, and if you put a ball between them, तो यहाँ पे क्या होता है? इस बॉल पर इधर से surface के perpendicular there will be a normal, suppose n1, and similarly from this surface also another normal, let us say this n2, will act, which is also perpendicular to the contact surface from this side. ठीक है? तो normal force is the perpendicular force which arises due to contact between two bodies. ठीक है? Normal force acts in such a fashion that it tries to compress the body. देखो, there is always a compressive normal force. हमेशा क्या होता है? बॉडी प्रेस होना चाहती है. देखो, if I again draw a platform and a block, so you will see that on the block the normal force acts in the upward direction and it is trying to press the body. Okay, and similarly if I talk about this platform, so on the platform you will see that the same normal is acted on the platform in the downward direction and it is trying to press the platform downwards. Okay, so normal force acts in such a fashion that it tries to compress the body. Okay, normal is a dependent force. It comes in role when one surface presses the other. जब तक contact नहीं होगा and they will not try to press each other, until then no normal force will come into play. जब तक contact में नहीं आएंगी दोनों bodies और एक दूसरे को press करने की कोशिश नहीं करेंगी, तब तक नॉर्मल फोर्स उनके बीच में आने वाला नहीं है. The next contact force we will discuss is frictional force. Okay. So what is frictional force? We should understand first. It is the component of contact force tangential to the surface. Okay. So suppose there is a block and it is moving in this direction, suppose with speed v. Okay, then this surface is applying some contact force. Obviously the first contact force, which is perpendicular to the surface, is, we know, is what? It is normal, that is in the upward direction, right? And the other contact force which is possible on this block due to the surface is called frictional force. It acts tangentially to the surface, tangent to the contact surface, okay, in this direction. Actually what it does is, first read that, it opposes the relative motion of the two surfaces in contact. Like in the previous slide we just saw that these two blocks are in contact, okay, and if this block was not moving, there was no tendency of motion of this block, then this friction would not arise, okay, because there is no tendency of relative motion between the surface and the block. They are not trying to move with respect to each other. But as soon as this block starts moving in the forward direction, what happens is this surface tries to stop the relative motion. This surface tries to stop the sliding of the block on it, right? So let me explain. Suppose there is a block, this is a platform, okay, and this block is moving in that direction, in the direction of motion, okay, as shown. And how is it moving? We are trying to push it. There is a pushing force also on this block, okay. So this surface will try to stop the relative motion between this block and the surface. Why so? Okay, now let me tell you what is the reason for this frictional force. Let us understand very slightly, okay. Any surface has some irregularities at microscopic level. However smooth the surface may appear to you at first look, but any surface has some irregularities, some zigzag shape, okay. And when we put another block on this surface, suppose, and it also has some irregularities of its own, okay. So when the upper block tries to move in the forward direction with, suppose, some velocity v, then what will happen? These irregularities will stick with each other, okay, and cause some resistance in the motion. This resistance of motion, that is that resistive force, acts always tangential to the surface, okay. So friction in this case, small f I am denoting for friction. This friction will act in the backward direction because the block is moving in the forward direction, okay. See, similarly, suppose if there was an inclined plane, I will take one more example here. Suppose this was an inclined plane and this is also rough, okay, and I put a block on this to slide down, है ना? It is sliding down due to its own weight. Then in which direction will this friction act? Along the tangent in the backward direction, okay, because this block is moving with respect to this wedge in the downward direction. So to stop this rough surface will apply a friction force in the upward direction. So friction always opposes slipping of two bodies over each other, okay. Chalo, actually friction we will talk later on in great detail, so we need not study it right now. We just have to understand that it acts always parallel to the contact surface along the tangent, right?